Alright, this is my review of the 2022 Scream film. This is the fifth movie in the franchise and the first to not be directed by Wes Craven, rest in peace. It's also the first Scream release in a little over 10 years after Scream 3 and 4 performed disappointingly compared to the first two. Not gonna lie, I haven't seen Scream 4, and I think I've seen Scream 3 like once on TBS while I was doing homework in high school or something. But I think the first movie is a masterpiece and that the second is an excellent follow-up. That being said, I wasn't expecting much from this movie, but I was very pleasantly surprised at how good it actually was. Instead of rebooting the series, this is a self-proclaimed requel with a new cast and some recurring quote-unquote legacy characters. For reasons that will get into spoilers, a new Ghostface killer is slashing their way through Woodsboro, and our new protagonist, Sam, is on a desperate search to find and stop them before her sister and their friends are all killed. I can't really talk too much about the plot and its themes without going into spoiler territory, but it was a really nice breath of fresh air in the series where Sam has a very personal connection to the string of killings and has to come to terms with some things about herself to find the killer. The whodunit aspects are also really strong. It's not clear at all who the killer is until the reveal at the end, and the writers do a really good job of shuffling suspicion around the cast. The killer's identity was really well hidden. Suspicion is thrown out every time two or more characters are together. It really makes your brain work to try and figure out where this person could have been during this killing. And even though some of the stuff didn't really line up perfectly when I think back about the movie, in the moment, you're not thinking that in depth because they're just constantly bombing you with, well, you could be the killer, but I could be the killer, but he could be the killer. They do a really good job of making you unsure of what to believe. The meta-commentary that Scream is known for is also, of course, very prevalent and very funny. There are several mentions of requels throughout the movie, and it's basically the writers letting us know that they know that we know where this movie's coming from, what's going to happen, and where the series is headed. When Mindy, played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, brings up this idea, they ask her what's going to happen. She says something along the lines of, no one knows, it can go anywhere. And it truly did. It was relatively surprising at some points. They touch on fandom's negative reactions to complete reboots, like Ghostbusters and Nightmare on Elm Street, and how all fans really want is a fresh take on a franchise with the occasional legacy character thrown in to make a nod to the past. I think both of these points, along with some angry fans reacting to Stab 8 on YouTube in the movie, was almost an admission from the writers that they're comfortable giving fans what they want, but also acknowledging that new and interesting characters aren't necessarily a bad thing, so long as they're good. Like this movie was. The script was also just really funny. Some scenes, I don't know if they were supposed to be funny. In the opening scene, it's in the trailer, this isn't a spoiler. In the opening scene, when Tara is being attacked, she's trying to lock her doors on the phone electronically, and they keep getting unlocked, and she has to lock it again, and then it's unlocked again. And it's kind of a comedic scene. I don't know if it was supposed to be, but it kind of played like a comedy scene. A lot of the character interactions are also pretty funny, especially when they point out that they know that they're in a horror movie, and they make really good deductions on what they should or shouldn't do. And obviously, they don't follow their own advice most of the time, but it's still really funny and clever, which is kind of weird to say and surprising that it's been this many years and this type of dialogue doesn't seem too overused in a Scream movie, but I thought it was fine. For the life of me, I can't remember a single specific joke, so maybe it wasn't too funny. But there is a scene where all the main characters are assembled and they're trying to figure out who the killer could be, and there's some pretty funny jabs back and forth in that scene. Yeah, maybe not as quotable as Scream 1, but it definitely got a few good laughs out of me in the theater. As for acting, I think everyone did a pretty great job. All of the legacy actors obviously knew what they were doing. Neve Campbell was great as always. David Arquette is easily the best performance in the entire movie. I'll talk about that later. I feel like Courtney Cox wasn't given too much to do, but I mean, whatever. She was good with what she had. And all the new cast was pretty decent. Mikey Madison as Amber is a master of playing a young person with a horrible attitude. Jasmine Savoy Brown, who I love from The Leftovers, was really funny and creepy and cool. And I really hope that this is her Hollywood typecast because she's really good at it. The only performance that took me out of the movie a couple times was Melissa Barrera as Sam. I think she was really good for most of her scenes, but some of the more emotional stuff just came off as her being tired, which kind of made me laugh a couple times. Cinematography and sound design was, competent. Nothing exactly mind-blowing, but definitely effective. The phone ringtone that everyone in the universe has was really annoying and scary when it was supposed to be, which is exactly the point. So kudos to them for getting that right. Some of the special effects were really great. One death involves a knife going into someone's throat and out the other side, and it was just insanely good. You see the knife go in and come out, and the movie knows it was a great effect because it lingers on it for a very long time, so you can eat it up and have your mind blown over and over and over that you just watched that happen. Okay, I'm gonna get into spoilers, skip ahead to avoid them and see my review. Okay, so Sam's dad is Billy Loomis from the first movie. That's okay, it's cool. Did it blow me away? No, but in service for her character and to give her a personal conflict the entire movie, it was pretty cool. It's nice to see a slasher film delve into themes other than survival and friendship. She carries this guilt of being a serial killer's daughter, and the guilt of revealing this to her dad who didn't know and abandons her family shortly after, and the guilt of hiding this from her sister, and the guilt that the new killer knows that she's his daughter and could potentially be hurting people because of her. It's really cool. It gives her a lot of internal conflict to have to cope with, and it's really refreshing. When her sister Tara is attacked, Sam wants to hunt Ghostface, not only to save her sister and their friends, but also for her own conscience. She feels guilty that she is this awful person's daughter and that people are being hurt, potentially because of her existence. And that's really cool. She had a lot to do in the movie, which I was really happy to see. I thought Dewey's death was really well done, both as a tribute to the character and as a mechanism for the filmmakers to drag Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox back into the action. I thought David Arquette's performance was easily the best in the movie. He and Gail have been split up for some time, but he still very much loves her, and maybe I'm just in a vulnerable time in my life, but the way he talks to her and the way he reacts to seeing her throughout the film, both in person and on her news broadcasts, were really great. He also still exudes that kind of anxiety and boyish shame that Dewey had in the first two movies, which is really great. I'm kind of sad that he's not going to be in any future installments, but he knocked it out of the park with this one. Was not expecting him to impress me this much. The reveal that Jack Quaid, who plays Sam's boyfriend, and Mikey Madison, who plays Tara's friend, were the killers was pretty non-surprising, but only because at that point in the movie, so many people were dead or injured that they were literally the only options. But it was still great. Their performances once the masks came off were still fantastic. Their killer motive in this is more obsessed fanboy than murderous psychopath, which I guess is kind of one and the same. But they both played their roles very well. Had no complaints on that side. Did not seem too hammy or cheesy. They definitely seemed deranged. Also, does Mikey have a clause in every one of her movies to get brutally beat, burned, and then have a jump scare after it's assumed that she's dead? Because that happened in this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm not complaining. She's great at it, and it's hilarious every time, but it's just a really weird typecast. The meta commentary made me laugh out loud several times. To start off, there was a lot of discussion about quote-unquote elevated horror. Movies like The Babadook, The Witch, and Jordan Peele movies that are considered elevated for completely avoiding slasher and horror tropes and focusing more on human issues personified into horror stories. In the very beginning, I think the Ghostface killer says something along the lines of, "That's not real horror." Because these Ghostface killers are huge Stab fans who don't care about human drama or personal issues. They just want their favorite franchise to catch a breath of fresh air while still delivering that classic slasher appeal. They don't really care about Sam being Billy Loomis' daughter for any personal vendettas. They don't see her as a person with internal struggle or pain. They just really love slashers and think she'd make a great launchpad to make a new series of Stab movies off of. I think they're the filmmakers' representation of angry Reddit bros, and yes, they do call out Reddit and 4chan by name. They're the type of toxic fans that will do anything for their beloved franchises, so long as the new entries aren't too different or too new. Some plot points that I think fell a little flat were the locations of the killers during some of the earlier killings. There's one outside of a bar that just didn't really make sense because one of the killers was asleep at the hospital and the other was with her friends walking out of a bar. So I don't know how she could have either killed the guy then got back to her friends without anyone noticing she was gone for an extended period of time. And I don't know how he could have... No, he couldn't even have gone to the bar because he didn't know that the friend group had gotten into an altercation with that guy. So yeah, very small stuff like that you don't really think about when you're watching, but after the fact, you're like, that doesn't make sense. Overall, I think Scream was a really great horror movie. with some very minor issues that didn't bother me too much in the end. I think it's an easy 8 out of 10 for me, something I'd definitely recommend and probably buy for myself if I saw it on a shelf. What did you guys think? Let me know.